Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here, and welcome to Gemstars with our co-host here, CATHY CARLSON. Now we've got two great VIPs here. We got Spencer DRATE. How are you today, Spencer?
Really doing rock and roll today. Big show with Chris.
That's it. Now let me tell you, the world loves Chris Frantz, and I've got to tell you, how are you today, Chris?
Oh, how am I? I'm sorry. I might need a translator.
Sorry, I'm Australian. I'll go again.
I'm feeling very well and so happy to be here. How's everything in Melbourne?
Melbourne is all right. We're still in a bit of lockdown here, but let me tell you, all over the world, Talking Heads is as big as it can be. And you know the great thing with Talking Heads, let me explain, Chris. You got new generations of fans discovering your music every day. So while you're at home, for example, you're getting more and more people finding about your fantastic music, buying your music all over the world on all these great platforms in 2021. I mean, how does that really feel? But not only that, tell me that, but you wrote a fantastic book that's a big worldwide seller. Tell me about the book.
Well, the book is called Remain in Love, subtitled Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, and Tina. And yeah, I'm happy to say it seems to be doing well. I don't know any exact figures, but somebody knows. Anyway, it's the story of my life with Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, and Tina, and a little bit outside of that as well. And I think besides the usual sources, you can get it at your local bookstore, which I always recommend. I'm big on the independent bookstores, if there are any in Melbourne. Are there?
Yeah, there are. And let me tell you, after this show, I'll be going in my car driving around until I buy the book. How's that? And if I can't find it, I'll go online and buy it.
Yeah, Amazon has loads of them.
Right.
And you know, that's a good source if you're out in the middle of nowhere or something. But well, if you're in a city or even just a little village that happens to have a bookstore, I always recommend the real
Bruce,
store.
can I ask how many times you've come to Australia?
How many times?
Yeah.
I believe I've been there 3 times. Yeah, 3 times.
And you love it, don't you?
Yes, we always had a fantastic time. I remember the night I was introduced to Australian champagne. Oh. That was good.
Yeah, well, your book is called Remain in Love with Tina, your sweetheart of all these years. I mean, you both formed the Talking Heads as well as the Tom Tom Club. I mean, that's so impressive. And you are still in love. So I love that. It's a real true romance story.
Thank you. I consider myself to be a very fortunate guy. And for many reasons, but especially for my my longtime romance with Tina, which continues. I'm happy to say.
Yeah, and you
That's an
also
amazing marriage.
Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, that was a great project to be part of, and we had been big fans of Ziggy's father and also his mother, and this project just sadly fell into our lap. I say sadly because the original producer who worked with us, a guy named Alex Sadkin, was one day driving in the Bahamas down at Compass Point Studio, and he was in a convertible Jeep. He was not driving, but the Jeep rolled and Alex's head hit a rock, and that was,
my God.
He never woke up. And so Tina's brother, Lorik Weymouth, was working at Virgin Records at the time. And when this disaster happened with Alex, they had to find a producer right quick. And Tina's brother said, well, how about Chris and Tina? They like reggae music. They know what's happening with reggae and all that. And so we got the gig. And, you know, Ziggy was so young. I think he was 19 years old at the time. He celebrated his 19th birthday during the recording. But he did not have very progressive views at the time. I remember he said to me the first day, Chris Frantz, how come you bring your wife to the studio? So he was not exactly, he was kind of living in a bubble back then. I understand now he's moved to Los Angeles and he has children of his own, and he probably knows now why you bring your wife to the studio.
That's great.
How's it feel being with Spencer DRATE, who's designed, as I said, 2 of your albums, 2 of your 45s? Go through that, Spencer. You've won so many awards, Spencer. It's an honor having you on the show.
Well, I want to thank you. And in my life, when I started working with Sire, John Gillespie, who was then the art director, you know this, Chris, but he threw me into all these groups, and he didn't promise me anything. Unfortunately, it worked out for everybody, thank God, even the Ramones. But the heads were a certain ambiance, which I really was attracted to because they all had a sort of an art or design background. And, you know, here we go. And it sort of worked out very smoothly. I got a sketch, for instance, of the type in some way with an underline justified. And then I went to a typewriter place to have all these women on typewriters typing up Talking Heads, Fear of Music, Talking Heads, Fear of Music. And it must have been 13 different, Chris, must have been 13 different styles of typewriter faces. I picked one, and I guess the group liked it. And then I formalized it. I really was the typography part of it with you guys. So, it worked out to be an amazing award-winning Grammy-nominated cover in a MoMA collection, permanent collection, and in the archive, now in the archival Rock and Roll Hall of Fame collection. And this was the cover, which had a Dayglow green ink, which added that zest to it. Very minimal design. And a trivia thing, information is that this is the last cover printed before the barcode. So no barcode, right, Chris? So it was, it had this simplicity. Jerry Harrison concept of the deck plate design. The rest is everybody working together. This was interesting, the inner sleeve. Tell about this, Chris. This is a story, right?
Well, Jerry took us to, he was friends with some doctor that was working in cancer, either cancer prevention or cancer treatment or something. It was really like on the edge at that time in 1979. And he had these heat related photography that he used to help detect things, areas of where there may or may not be cancer. And we each had our portrait done. Of course, that's David Byrne. He got the big picture as usual. but you know, it was pretty freaky looking, and we thought, well, David's is the freakiest. We'll use that one.
And I guess he deserved that in a way.
I might add the where Jerry got the idea for the deck plate.
Yes,
is we lived in a loft in Long Island City, Queens. Tina and I did, and that's where the band rehearsed, and that's where we recorded Fear of Music, in that loft. And Tina's brother was in the adjoining loft next door, and he would often have us over for dinner or something, just a visit. And one day he's an architect of some repute. Like he worked on he was a chief designer for I.M. Pei, for example, for the Louvre project, and also the East Wing of the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. And also now on his own, he's designed, among other things, the Salvador Dali Museum down in St. Petersburg, Florida. His name is Jan Weymouth. And Jan was one of the people that introduced the design world to this idea of high tech. And on his floor of his kitchen, he had well, is it vinyl? I guess vinyl.
Yes, vinyl.
Like flooring, and Tina corrects me. It was rubber, not vinyl, but on the floor of his kitchen. And Jerry was looking down on it, and we all thought. He said, "This would make a great album cover." One of squares, and I think they were 12-inch squares, and we all agreed that would be a really cool thing. And so the original album covers, like the one Spencer's holding, were embossed the same way deck plate is embossed, a non-skid surface, and it was really good for cleaning your weed. You know,
the other part I want to say also, part of this venture was learning about the concepts that were rejected, Chris, which you know about. There was one about using regular, I guess, a rubber, which Warner Brothers went crazy over. I think that was one I know. John Gillespie told me was a styrofoam box. And within the shrink wrap was disappearing ink, and there were the battery lights lit up, and I said, and so he says to me, Chris, he says to me, Spencer, we're going to need a Russian scientist. That's what he said to me in the office, Chris. And so I remember that stands out. Amazing, Chris. You know, but of course it would cost a fortune. Of course they could do it with our favorite, which you know about, Robert Rauschenberg. Spent a lot of money. Tell us about this special edition.
Well, Robert Rauschenberg was one of our favorite artists, and of course one of the greatest American artists of all time. And David's wife at the time, Bonnie, her real name was Adele Lutz, but her nickname was Bonnie. And her sister was married to Mr. Chow, the great restaurateur. Did they have a Mr. Chow's in Australia?
I'm sure they do somewhere. I don't eat too much Chinese.
Well, it's like very high-end Chinese. And a lot of artists would go there, and including Robert Rauschenberg, because Mr. Chow would, if you needed to, he would give you a tab in exchange for a work of art. So you would often see famous artists at Mr. Chow's. And Bonnie was the hostess before she got married at the restaurant, and she knew Rauschenberg because he came in there frequently. And she made the introduction, as I understand it. But he agreed immediately to do it because he liked the band, and as long as the proceeds from his share went to a charity, his choice. He had a foundation, and that's what the proceeds went to. This was the record that the Rauschenberg version was a limited edition of 50,000. Can you imagine when 50,000 was a limited edition? But they all sold very quickly, and the proceeds from that went to his foundation. It was hard. It was very hard to find a company that would do it in clear plastic, like a clear plastic cover, and we ended up using who was it, Spencer? The
HEI? HEI maybe?
Well, it was the company that makes Oscar Mayer hot dog.
Oh yeah, the hot dogs. Right.
Hot dog packaging.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh yeah, we can do that." And so yeah, the whoever did the packaging for Oscar Mayer did it. Now over the years, it's not faded, but
yeah, it is
the opposite of fading. It's turning yellow.
Yeah.
Not the record itself, but just the cover. And I read some guy was complaining about that, but no, I'm sorry, we didn't know it was going to turn yellow over the years.
Well, yellow is the same as gold. What the heck?
I mean, my cover is.
Give you a new comeback.
You know, it's funny. My cover is still intact with the color. By the way, all should know that this won a Grammy Award for best packaging, which is the one thing about the heads. And I collect 45s and LPs, but I know most of the product was that the group itself always had really great graphics, no matter whether it was the 45s or the 12-inch or the album covers. We talk about continuity here, which is rare in the music business. Maybe like Led Zeppelin went along those lines, or the Rolling Stones in some way. But consistently, this is very important, consistently the heads always had great visuality on the different pieces. So that's a very big point, which a lot of groups never came near that, which I thought was very exceptional. This is a 45, which was in the MoMA show. Take Me to the River, 2010, Looking at Music, side 2 show with Laurie Anderson co-curated. This piece was in it with a lot of great covers. The fabulous Al Green, Chris.
Yes, this is Al Green's Full Gospel Tabernacle. That's of course Al Green wrote the song. Mm-hmm. So we asked our local Warner Brothers representative down in Memphis if he would just take a snapshot of Al Green's church for us so we could put it on the cover, which is what we did. And I understand that Al Green, I've never met Al. I've been to a couple of his shows, which were always superlative, but I understand that he enjoyed the record very much, and that he also enjoyed the cover.
Oh, that's great.
It promotes the church, but not only that, I just want to say that other cover that you showed that was turning yellow, you've heard of that Donovan song, Mellow Yellow?
Yeah. So on the bottom, there are these waves art, and I use Letraset, the old paste down Letraset, and that kind of completed the visuality. But this was a exceptional a recording, of course. And didn't Brian Ferry do this song also, Chris? Brian Ferry?
Well, it's pretty wild what happened. Not only did Brian Ferry do it, but also Levon Helm from the band did a version.
Wow. A
solo version. And a group from Canada called Foghat did a version. So there were 4 versions out at the same period of time.
Wow.
Of that song. It's kind of weird that, but it is a great song. And I guess that's why we all chose it. It was the only cover version that Talking Heads ever recorded. Mm-hmm. And it was our first hit single.
It was big time. This is Cities that comes off the Fear of Music album, and this you're Chris, the Plastics, right? The artwork by Plastics.
Yes, the Plastics were a young design team that we met in Japan. They did the tour program for our first tour of Japan, and we thought, wow, in America we didn't really get tour programs, but we were like, wow, this is great. And then we got to meet them, and they were super fun and interesting. 3 of them in particular, Toshi, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, and Hajime and Chika. And they invited us to their studio. They said, we have band also, I said, oh, really? And they said, come to our studio and we'll jam. So we went to their studio. We were expecting, musical instruments, which they were, but they were toy musical instruments, like little toy saxophones and little toy drums and little toy guitars. And so we had a jam session with the Plastics on toy instruments, and they later went on to do a couple great records of their own. They got signed to Island, mainly through their connection with us.
Yeah, I think this is what's interesting about this design. When I got the artwork, I said, where am I going to put the type? But then I said, wait a minute, I'll do it vertically. I'll stack up the type on both sides. It's the only way to do this thing. And this is where you have artwork, Chris, where it almost tells you how to do the typography in a way, and the idea is pick of course, the most important, pick the right typeface. I don't want to infringe on the art at all, So it worked out. The color is beautiful. Their artwork was very beautiful on it.
Yeah. They're still doing books and things.
Oh, really? Wow.
And T-shirts. They have a line of T-shirts.
Really?
They're all really great, but not really available outside of Japan, I don't think.
I just hey, by the way, I think I messaged you this today, Chris. After all these years of not knowing, I looked out on Discogs and I saw the I Zimbrick 45 with the machinery art on it. And I said, wait a minute, I did that. The UK edition. But I remember it was going overseas, but I never heard about it. But it's like photography. You don't know where your things go sometime. And,
right.
There's so many printings, you probably might miss some. I know.
Yes, there are a lot of versions that I've never seen, because in those days, not only did 45s have covers, but each country wanted to have a different cover to identify themselves. So there's a lot of artwork that we never saw, or I might add, approved.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
right.
Okay. That's all right.
That's interesting. Kathy,
Yes.
if you got questions,
okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, Chris, along with your then girlfriend, Tina Weymouth, you also toured Europe with the Ramones. And when you created hits like Psycho Killer and Burning Down the House, that really, really set you in for fame, didn't it?
Well, yeah. Having songs that people like is what it's all about, And we,
right.
I might add, we worked very hard as a band. One thing about Talking Heads is we had a really good work ethic, and Tina, Jerry, and Tina, David, and I had all studied at the Rhode Island School of Design, so we had a very visual kind of background, and music came after the study of art and design. And Jerry had studied architecture at Harvard University,
right.
And so we were very keen on having good visuals.
Well, what's interesting, Chris, is that when I worked with you and the group, we were very similar. I had a Yale background in design, so that went along with RISD and Cooper Union, and of course the famous Joseph Albers base with color.
Yes.
So I think that helped with all of us working together in that. But I wanted to bring that up. But RISD was a great school that you went to, right?
Yes, it still is.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it still is. It's great. It's up there. It's always up there.
I grew up in Connecticut, and it was so cool that I saw that you started the band, the Artistics, which ended up being the Talking Heads. So even Classic was surprised about that before you came on, and we were discussing
And
it.
I also got to say, Tom Tom Club came out of Connecticut too, didn't it, Chris?
Yeah.
Well, it does now, and it has. We've lived in Connecticut for 35 years now.
Wow.
But when we started Tom Tom Club, we were living in Long Island City in New York, part of New York City, and then we created the record and the band down in the Bahamas at Compass Point Studios, which is where we had also recorded 2 albums with Talking Heads, including Remain in Light. And we were actually the first band to record. Talking Heads was the first band to record at Compass Point.
Really? Wow.
And what happened with Tom Tom Club was the reason we did it is Tina and I had no idea that we would ever be doing anything outside of Talking Heads. We were very happy with our roles in the band, and the way the band was going, and everything was great. But one day, David Byrne said to our manager, "I'm going to be doing a solo album, and I don't know how long it's going to take." And then when Jerry heard that, he said, "Well, if David's going to do a solo album, I'm going to do a solo album." And so Tina and I thought,
okay,
what are we going to do? And our accountant said, "You better do something because you're going to need the money." And so Talking Heads was doing very well, but we weren't making a lot of money because we put all our money back into our shows and our productions and things. We had just finished a worldwide tour with a band of 9 people and the crew to go with it. And we had toured the world for well over a year. And there was not much money left for us when that tour was over. Although I'm very happy we did it because it was historic and people loved it and we loved it. But so anyway, we had to do something. And our manager went to Chris Blackwell of Island Records and said, "Chris and Tina would like to come down to Compass Point and make a record. What do you think of that?" And he said, "Well, I understand the value of a good rhythm section. Why not have them come down and cut a single? And if I like the single, then they can do a whole album."
Wow.
So that's what we did. And we recorded a song called Wordy Rapping Hood. And the idea of Wordy Rapping Hood was, it was a song about words, but beyond that, it was designed to sound good in a dance club in New York City in particular, like the Mud Club or the Peppermint Lounge or Harrah's or the Paradise Garage, someplace like that. And guess what? When it came out, it was played endlessly in those dance clubs. Wow. And so we considered it to be a great success.
Yes.
And it charted in all the island territories, it charted very highly. I think it did pretty well down in Australia too.
I got to say something, Chris. Everything you put out does really good in Australia. But let me tell you this. You guys with Talking Head had a very individual sound. Now, not only that, you got to understand, I love Talking Heads, but I also love Blondie. So you got to tell me what it was like with Blondie, because I got no idea. I didn't live down there, let's say CBGBs, and I really want to know what it was like there, the vibe with Blondie. Can you tell me something like the first time you met Blondie, the band, and Deborah Harry? Just give us some insight.
Well, you know, Plastic. It's in my book.
Okay, read the book.
But I'll give you a little preview. By the way, today is Debbie Harry's birthday. Did you know that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. But let me say, a happy birthday from everyone here, Deborah Harry.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Deb.
Yep. Happy birthday, Deb.
Yeah, she's a wonderful person, and she's been a good friend to us. In fact, she wrote this really nice blurb for me. I'll read it to you.
Yeah,
please.
She says, Remain in Love has great storytelling and amazing detail about adventures that Chris and I have shared in our parallel universe. As the Brits say, I'm gobsmacked. I devoured this book and all the memories and all the love Chris has for Tina. One of the most potent examples of living the dream.
All right.
So
that's gorgeous.
Beautiful. That's so priceless.
Debbie was our neighbor. We lived on a street called Christie Street, and Debbie lived one block over on the Bowery with Chris Stein in a little loft building. And but the first time I saw her, it was not even Blondie yet. They were called the Angel and the Snake. I guess Debbie was the angel and Chris Stein was the snake. I'm just guessing, but they performed a set, and I was there with David Byrne at CBGB's, and I felt like this woman is fantastic, and it sounds like every song she sings, it sounds like she's singing it directly to me, like she's speaking directly to me when it wasn't just me, obviously, but that's the way it felt. And you know, that's a very good quality for a singer to have. And plus she was very beautiful. So after the show, I screwed up all my courage, and I said to her, I walked up to her, she was standing at the bar, and I walked up to her and I said, "Hi, I'd like to introduce myself, Chris Frantz." She said, "Hi, I'm Debbie." David was standing behind me. I said, "This is David Byrne," and David was standing behind me all nervous. And I said, "You know, Debbie, David and I are starting a band, and we were wondering, would you be interested in singing with us?"
Wow. And
she said, "Well, I've already got a band, but you can buy me a drink." And so I bought her a drink, and we've been friends ever since.
Oh, that's nice. Great story.
I don't get to see her as often as I used to, although I'm hoping to see her in the not too far future. Yeah.
I mean, I could point up, I'm friends with Chris. I know Debbie, and there's such, and you know this, Chris, there's such approachable people. They're very sensitive and open to anybody. I mean, I've been to openings of their openings, and they talk with everybody. It's like, it's such a beautiful, they're like you and Tina, really, in a sense, with a heart.
Yeah.
And you appreciate those people in music or people you know like that. You know what I mean, Chris? Yeah.
Yes. Debbie's not only good to her fans, but she's also good to all the other bands that, like for example, one time we asked her, would she do a cameo in a Tom Tom Club video? And she said, "Sure." And she came down and, you know, came down to the set on one of her days off and did a little cameo. She when we put together that thing called The Heads, which was the three talking heads without David, because David refused to work with us anymore. Debbie was featured on that album. And you know, she's a sweetheart.
Now, Chris, now are you going to be releasing any new music?
We just released a new for Record Store Day. Limited edition album called the reissued, I should say, limited edition album called the Good, the Bad, and the Funky, which is on beautiful marble colored vinyl.
Wow.
Blue marble.
Beautiful.
And yes, we intend to do more stuff, although we're I'm going to be working on another book, and but Tina wants to do some new music, possibly electronic in nature. We're not exactly sure, but we're just getting we have a studio here, and we're just getting it brought up to date. I mean, all the gear was brand new about 10 years ago. But as you know, in this age, in this technical age, it's like dog years. 10 years is like 70 years or something. So we had to replace our console, which went kaput, even though it was, I thought of it as a new thing. but parts inside of it broke, and the company said, "Oh, we no longer support that console." So we had to go looking all over the world basically for another console, and guess where we found one? This is so great. They had it for sale. The Wu-Tang Clan. At their studio in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Wow.
So we now are the proud owners of the Wu-Tang Clan's console.
Hey, listen, I want to bring in something. You were mentioning electronic, and Mark Rowland of Electronic Sound I had on my show.
Oh, yeah.
And he sent me your single. Talk about the single you put out in that magazine.
We did a single. That's an excellent magazine, Electronic Sound.
Amazing.
It's a real collector's type magazine. And they're going to be doing a piece about Talking Heads. No, excuse me, about Tom Tom Club.
Great.
Coming up in the near future, I think.
Uh-oh, got to get that, yeah.
But the thing we did a couple years ago was an electronic piece that Tina and I did. Oh, we must have recorded it 20 years ago or something like that, or 15 years ago. But it's real cool. Mm-hmm. It's called Incognito.
Mm-hmm.
And
great cut.
Yeah.
Great cut.
That's fantastic. Now, Chris, I just want to say before we do a wrap, please show everybody that fantastic book one more time.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the one. Go out and get it.
Remain in love.
Remain in love.
Hey, you know what? I gotta bring in something. I read the book. You know, Chris. You know, I've had you on interviews, but I'll tell you, there's so many stories in there that people don't know about. That alone, and to read about your wonderful life with Tina, the whole combination is amazing. And all those stories, things that I never knew, that people would not know, that should know about it. Get a copy of this book. It's an easy read and a beautiful read. I'm telling you.
Well, thank you, Spencer.
Yeah.
Don't wait, go out and buy it. And thanks again for joining us today on Gemstars with the fantastic Chris Frantz. We love you, Chris. Yeah, thanks, Spencer. Thanks, Kathy. And wait for our next big guest because we got them all coming, haven't we, Spencer?
Yeah, we got a couple more that are really cool, man.
Thanks again. See you soon.
You're welcome.